Hey, and welcome to another Shatter the Vein mini episode. I'm Brad Chmielewski, and on this minisode, I'm joined by Jake Williams, my Heroes of the Storm expert this week. Or not even this week, I'm not even sure how quickly these minisodes are coming out. But Jake, welcome.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. Heroes of the Storm expert is it's probably the best title I've ever been given, I think.
I think, well, you are the person I know with the most heroes knowledge.
Oh, well, I'm flattered.
Yeah. So, we used to do a podcast called The Lane back in the day, maybe a year and a half ago at this point, where we covered multiple MOBAs. And at one point, us three kind of branched off into our own spaces a little bit, like our buddy Dr. Starkweather going more into the League of Legends realm, you into Heroes, and me into Vainglory. Uh, and so we've our paths needed to come back at some point.
Yeah.
And I think this is a perfect time because the Vainglory community is talking a lot about 5v5 because Super Evil Megacorp shared some images of possible map designs. They are working on ideas, concepts that are kind of coming because 5v5 should be introduced sometime towards the end of 2016 or 2017, early 2018. And people are upset that this map looks a lot like the League of Legends map. And I recently had another mini-sode Rumbly Superset on, and he was just kind of talking about the idea like, hey, that works, right? The League map works. It's the Dota 2 map too, really, to some degree.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just thinking like, there are so many other ways to do this because we've seen Heroes of the Storm be very successful with this, and they do not call them maps, as you tell me. They are called Battlegrounds.
That's just Blizzard being Blizzard and actually, coming up with different ways to say things, doing it in their own way, yeah.
So I would love to hear your thoughts on, I guess, these Battlegrounds and how they're different than League, because you've played League of Legends quite a bit. You've played a handful of Vainglory on their one lane jungle kind of maps. So you get the concept there, but I have a feeling that the community should trust Super Evil Megacorp and to do something different that's not a copy of League, because there are ways to do this. So how has Heroes of the Storm accomplished this that's not a top, middle, bottom lane over and over again?
Sure. Well, first I'll start off by saying apologies to anybody. I'm dealing with allergies, so if I'm clearing my throat or whatever, I'm trying my best here. So just up front, I know. And second, so how does Blizzard do it, right? So it's actually the Battleground idea. I think actually came from StarCraft, which was their more popular esport before Heroes came out. I actually think the StarCraft team and the Heroes team are on the same team at the company too. So, but the idea was that even if it was 1v1, there was still a map pool, and there were certain maps that were better for the different races, the Terran, the Protoss, all that stuff. But if you're asking how does Blizzard get away with it in a way, or how do they make it work with Heroes, I think it's because they set out in the beginning to make that game as colorful, as interesting, as diverse as all of their properties are, because it is Blizzard the game, right? It's got their StarCraft, Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch Heroes, and all that in there. But they also wanted to make it crazy accessible. So I think Blizzard went at it from an accessibility standpoint rather than a competitive esports standpoint, where take it like a real sport, like basketball, right? Every court's the same. The arenas are different. That's for the fans. But the game itself is played on the same court. And if you're a game like Dota or you're a game like League of Legends, you got the same court. Basically, you're going to make it work so that everybody can practice on it and get to the big leagues and go play whatever they're going to do. And to an extent, I think that's what Vainglory did too, right? You just made the one map, and that's what everyone's going to learn and love and play the game on.
But there's not another version of basketball that's the same, I guess, field or same court that everyone's playing on, and it's now called this other game.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, that's just a copy of basketball. So how is, you said they came at it as a different way, not just let's copy but what's working. Let's do something different. So how are these maps different?
Well, the maps themselves, you mean?
Yeah.
So each one has different objectives. If you've ever played a game of Heroes of the Storm, I guess I'll give you a crash course now, which is It still has the same thing as a MOBA has, which, by the way, they've stopped calling it a hero brawler. I think they just gave up and it's a MOBA.
Okay.
It's
It
been
didn't
years.
catch on
It's
enough.
been years. So
Okay.
the point is the same, right? It's you both have cores. You need to destroy the cores. And I'll talk about a couple unique maps in a minute here, but they do have mercenary camps, so there is jungle creep that you can actually go kill and get experience for. But in this game, mercenaries work in a different way where you capture them, much like this is how unfamiliar with Vainglory I am, the Kraken, right? The middle guy. You
Yeah.
can capture him and he fights for you. He runs down the lane for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just about all the mercs in Heroes of the Storm do that. There are boss ones that are big like the Kraken and Vainglory, but there are also smaller ones too. And the other thing is that there's shared EXP. So even if you're playing on a different battleground, a different world, whether it's the Temple of Anubis Egyptian theme or if it's the Garden of Terror, which I don't know why I brought up that one. We all don't like that one. You know that you're sharing experience with your team, so the objective roughly is the same. They're different in that the size is different. That's one of the big things. The number of lanes is different. I do believe there are more 3-lane maps these days, although actually I could be wrong. Some of the newer ones are 2, and I think it's just easier to balance that way. And what I was saying about a couple different maps is there's actually 2 maps currently in the game. One I believe they actually just pulled, which is kind of a sad story, but I'm also not upset about it, is that you can't attack the core directly. The objective is the goal, and it basically launches like points of damage at your enemy's core. So you can't ever do like a backdoor. You can't do like a rush for the core, or the nexus, or whatever. You have to actually play the map the way they intend you to play it. So it's kind of interesting, and it's a lot of fun to be able to play on games where the objective is slightly different on every map.
Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe the maps of the Battlegrounds don't really have as big of an effect because you said the experience is shared, so it doesn't have this same like, hey, we need a ADC, we need a support or a captain, we need a jungler, a mid, and a top. Like everyone is kind of working together, so there's less, I guess, defined roles maybe.
Yeah, to an extent. I think as the game is shaken out, because when it was brand new, there's no meta. You just picked what you wanted to. Stuff has become more meta now, but the interesting thing is I think you have to start looking at every battleground technically has a different meta. A big thing in Heroes of the Storm that happened and is kind of coming back, went away for a little bit, but the power level of heroes that have global abilities. So, for instance, there's a character Falstad who can fly to anywhere on the map. Another character, Dahaka or Brightwing, can basically teleport to a bush or to an ally, respectively. If it's a giant map, these characters are broken. These characters are great because instantly you can turn any even fight in your favor because now you have an extra ally. So a lot of times bans, and the game still only has 2 bans, which is the hero pool is getting up there. Those characters get picked first on big maps. It kind of decides what the meta is and how that stuff plays out.
Okay, man, what's the hero pool up to at this point?
Gosh, I want to say it's over 50 at this point. I haven't followed the last 2 releases that closely, but those are, I think it's up there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because Vainglory has competitive 2-ban, but in-game 1-ban.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that's only at like 30 heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, well, that's pretty awesome. Do you think like not knowing what Vainglory is up to or Super Evil Megacorp, do you think it's I guess, is it a better idea to copy what's working because it's familiar and people can watch from an esports point of view, or is it like more interesting as maybe a watcher because you do watch a lot of esports to see something totally different, but then you go into it and be like, oh well, why don't they have a top lane like guy? Where's that guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. I was going to say early on when you were giving the spiel in the beginning there was that, Vainglory maybe might look at making a 5-man map that looks the same because it works.
Okay.
People know what they're looking at, right, when they watch it. The challenge Heroes has had is that for a few years they've had a big competition, a collegiate competition called Heroes of the Dorm, and it's college teams get together and they compete for tuition money. But what they do is they have these deals, these broadcast deals, where they broadcast on like things like ESPN2 or with the college station or something. But what they do is, we, the viewers who also play the games, are familiar with the talent builds or the items or whatever it might be, the heroic icons, things like that, the res timers.
Yeah.
These little tiny details that if grandma's watching, she doesn't know that. So they actually had this interesting challenge where when they would broadcast this big tournament on an actual network TV to redesign the UI, and actually a lot of the commentary was, I don't want to say dumbed down, but it was basically like as if it was a newbie-friendly stream where they would say like, oh, a fight's coming up, and this hero has his heroic ability, which will let them do this in X amount of seconds. Like they really drew it out so that you knew. They painted a better picture of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of interesting. I guess my fear is like I keep hearing over and over again that like, hey, it works, so why not just stick with it? But the same thing may happen where if you're coming from League, you might look at this and be like, oh, that's the baby's MOBA. Where Heroes of the Storm had that problem where like, oh, this is like the easy MOBA, and I know Vainglory probably is seen like that to a lot of League of Legends players because right now it's 3v3. So it's like, oh, well, it's one lane. Like, well, I play a 5v5 and I have more, our games are 40 minutes and we have a strategy. So that's, I feel like copying it maybe just hits that over the head a little more like, hey, this is a lesser.
Yeah, and it's also tough where I think where Vainglory's strength is probably is that even though they launched later, just like Heroes did, they launched later, Dota and LOL were already kind of juggernauts in the industry. They both decided to do something different. So Vainglory decided to push the touch. Touch was the big thing for them, and I think doing it 3v3 made it easier for you to actually play it on mobile. Honestly.
Yeah, I think. I wonder. I've proposed this a few times that maybe 3v3 was only there because that's all our phones and tablets could handle at the time. And now 3 years into this game, the tech's a little better.
Yep.
So we can go to 5.
Yeah, and I wonder if I don't know about phones, but tablets are getting pretty powerful. I know Microsoft has some cool tablets, and I don't know, the iPad has Pros now and stuff like that. Like, I wonder if there would ever be a case where they would need to do a tablet-only version, and of course that fragments your player base maybe a little bit because depending on who's playing the game, some people only play on phones because they have a phone.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. Like you can't afford 2 devices, one to just play a game.
Right. You can make it work.
Okay. Well, awesome, Jake. Thanks for joining me to chat a little bit about Heroes, give a little insight to the Vainglory community, because I feel like there's so much overlap and people do play other games sometimes, and it's nice to know, like, hey, what's this game doing versus this game? That's a good insight.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was fun, and hopefully I did Blizzard justice in talking about their game that I love.
Can people reach out on Twitter if they have any other Heroes questions for you, I guess? Yeah,
you guys can reach me on Twitter at Jacob Williams, my full name over there. And sometimes I'm talking animation or I'm talking about video games, but any Heroes questions or want to play, hit me up. Love to.
Nice. And be sure to follow Shatter the Vein on Twitter at Shatter the Vein. Take care.
Let's get this over with.